Hi, my name is Namulanta Combo from the Dear Daughter podcast with the BBC World Service. I'm collecting letters of advice for my daughter Coco and for daughters everywhere. You can find us and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. This season, I'm talking to some incredible parents who are stars in their fields, actors, sports stars, scientists, about what advice they have for their daughters. Today, I'm talking to wildlife ecologist Dr. Rae Wynn Grant. She presents a nature program in the US called Wild Kingdom, and she studies large carnivores. In fact, she was once chased by a bear. Hi, Rae. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on to the Dear Daughter podcast. This is really exciting because my daughter and my son actually are obsessed with nature programs. We've had them on because my husband and I thought, okay, we're raising these kids and we don't want them to watch TV. So we just have nature programs on anytime they wanted to watch TV. So they're obsessed. But could you tell me exactly what it is you do?
Well, I like to tell people that I have the best job in the world, and I have been a wildlife ecologist for almost 20 years now, which means that I study wild animals and their habitats and essentially work to make sure that wild animals have the habitats that they need in order to thrive. And like your kids, I actually got my spark to become a wildlife ecologist from watching nature programs. I would say, gosh, I want to be a nature show host. I want to be like those people, those guys that I see on TV that are out in the jungles and the savannas and the grasslands with wild animals. And so, one of the things that I'm most proud of that I do for a living today, in addition to the science, is I'm the host of an amazing award winning show called Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom Protecting the Wild. And it's a revival of a classic nature show, literally one of the ones I used to watch when I was a child. And I am the co host of that show, along with a man named Peter Gross. And I get to do wildlife ecology, I get to do science communication, and I just get to spend so much time in the wilderness with wild animals working to protect them.
And is it true that you are the first Black woman to have a nature show in the US?
I am the first Black woman to host a wildlife
Yeah.
show in the United States.
Congratulations, Rae. That's huge. We're proud of you.
You know, I am like not shy about being an emotional person. I am very in touch with my emotions. I am like openly emotional. So there are many times that I kind of sit with the the realness of that and you know, I like tear up a little bit or sometimes a lot because I am what I needed as a child. You know, I don't think I would have struggled so much with self-confidence and self-doubt had I seen someone like me when I was a little girl.
Rae, tell me about the time you got chased by a bear.
um, you know, when I'm with students, they always ask me, like, "Oh, have you ever had a close encounter? Have you ever been attacked by a bear?" And I've never been attacked by a bear, obviously, because I would not be here to tell you about it. But I have had some really close calls,
Mhm.
and I have, in fact, had a situation where I was chased by a bear, and it could have killed me if it wanted to. And so I am completely grateful to that bear for choosing not to kill me dead in that moment. I was doing research in the Western United States and I was on this long camping trip all by myself. It was about 10 days long. And I was looking for a bear that did not have a GPS collar on it. So, like, I didn't know where it was in the whole wilderness. It could have been anywhere. But my job was to set traps, and these traps are just big cages that had food in it for the bear to walk into. We would trap it, we would tranquilize it, give it a checkup, take some DNA samples, and then give it a tracking collar so that we would never have to trap it again. And I was visiting this trap every single day. No bear, no bear, no bear. On day 10, I had to do this long hike into the wilderness from my campsite to look at the trap and see if there's anything there. And I decided I'm not bringing my backpack. It's so heavy, it weighs me down. So I'm not bringing my water or my flare gun or my bear spray. I'm just going to leave it all right here because there's never a bear.
Yeah.
And I took the long hike in. and I saw my trap, and there was no bear in it, just like always, but the bait was gone. And so, I went in the trap and I had we just baited it with cans of tuna fish. So I just went in and I put the new tuna fish in and I left the trap thinking, okay, hopefully this is the last time I have to do this. And as soon as I turned, there was a huge male black bear right there. I mean, probably 10 feet from me, looking right at me. And I panicked. And even though I was trained in all of the right things to do when you encounter a bear, which is
Hmm.
like back away slowly, do not run, don't make eye contact, I absolutely panicked and did all of the wrong things. And I didn't have my bear spray. And I just started running. I just turned and I ran down this hill and I was stumbling and falling. And the bear started chasing me and I could feel it right on my back. I could hear it grunting and I started crying. I just knew that this was it. It was going to hurt me. It was going to devour me. I was out in the middle of nowhere. No one was going to know where I was. I was never going to be found. And as I ran and ran and ran, I stopped hearing the bear as close to me and it got farther and farther and farther. And finally, I was able to look back and I saw that the bear had turned around and gone back to the trap just to eat the bait
Tuna.
that I had just put out. It was the bear decided, you know what? I just want this tuna fish. I don't want this girl. So I'll let her live. But I never made that mistake again. I never went anywhere without my bear spray ever again.
And you wrote this amazing letter to your daughter. You have two girls, actually. Could you tell me a bit
That's
about
right.
them?
So I am just the most fortunate person in the world. I say that a lot because I think that if I had known how challenging parenthood was before I had kids, I wouldn't have done it. I did not have children in my life. I have a very small family. There weren't other kids in my family. I was the first person of all my friends to have kids. So there were truly no babies or children in my life when I was deciding, like, hey, yeah, I want to try motherhood. And so I was pretty ignorant to what it would be like. And I have these amazing daughters. One is 9.5, the other is 4, and they are very different from each other. They are very different from me. They're very different from how I was even as a child. And they are demanding of attention. They are interesting, dynamic people. And they like take all of my time and energy, which I don't have a lot of extra time and energy, but they definitely take 150% of it. I could have probably lived a beautiful life without these daughters in my world, but man, being their mother and being able to shape my life around theirs has been the most rewarding thing that has ever happened to me. They're really cool kids. They are incredibly special kids, and I'm just honored to be their parent.
You've written them an amazing letter about self doubt, which I'd love for you to read, and then we can talk a bit more about it after.
Okay. Dear daughters, thus far, I feel that I've lived 1,000 lives in apartments in urban Black communities, in tents in East African savannas, in marble pillared buildings in Ivy League institutions, in log cabins on the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains, as a married new mother in the chaos of Manhattan, as a single mother bouncing between Capitol Hill and the Congo Basin, and now as a largely traveling, speaking, writing, hosting, sciencing, remarried mother to both of you in a sleepy beach town in my home state of California. And through all of these versions of my womanhood, self doubt has showed up far too often to make a mess of my mind and steer me briefly off course. Right now, our world is rainbows and games and tooth fairies and dessert negotiations. Right now, our world is family road trips and homework help and band aids for cuts and scrapes. Right now, the life decisions, both big and small, are made by the parents. But I'll still be your mother when these things switch over. When your independence means more than just heading off to college and staying out late at parties. I'll still be your mother when I witness your transition into decision making. And with that, the potential for self doubt to enter the picture. Here's the good news: through therapy, coaching, and, well, getting older, I've almost entirely defeated self doubt. And in its place, I've learned that there is no such thing as the right decision. There is only your decision and how you'll feel about yourself when you experience the result. Being decisive is powerful, even if the result of the decision isn't exactly what you wanted. Then you pivot and fix it, or learn from the mistake. But the paralysis of indecision and self doubt is something women are socialized to experience, and it holds us back. It causes us to blame ourselves when our lives don't match a picture perfect idea we have in our heads. And it can cause us to remain small, or worse yet, give our power away to someone else. I have so many wishes for you girls in the magnificent lives that lay ahead of you. And one of them is this: do not waste time in indecision. Do not waste time in self doubt. Choose, try, experience, and call me when you need help, because you will, and I'll be there. Love, Mommy.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. It sounds like you have been very busy. You've been to all these parts of the world. And it sounds like everywhere you have gone, you have carried self doubt with you, like this piece of hand luggage, which is very familiar for me. I've had indecision, I've had self doubt, I've had imposter syndrome, which I'm working on as well. But how have you experienced it? What is it? How has it shown up for you in your life? Self doubt.
Oh my goodness. It has shown up for me in personal ways, in professional ways, in the intersections of those things, in relationships. But the way that it stands out the most, I think, is that I have always wanted to do such non-traditional things, but I always dreamed of like faraway adventures and hyper independence and this non-traditional career once I found the career part. Um, and self-doubt entered the picture because I didn't have a lot of examples of women, of Black women, of millennial Black women holding the kind of career that I wanted and kind of was already doing. So even at my happiest moments, I would think to myself, like, oh, should I be working in an office? Should I be wearing like high heels and a pencil skirt and, holding a latte? Should I have that kind of lifestyle?
Mhm.
Self doubt would creep up a lot when things were hard. If I was like, I want to be a nature show host, and all the nature show hosts that I was aware of in the world were male
Yeah.
and white, it said to me, oh, there are barriers to this field that only white men can cross. Whether or not that's true is different than what I internalized.
Mhm.
And so then, yeah, that's, self doubt creeps in again because you say, like, well, then what am I wasting my time on? I
Yeah.
could be a teacher. I could be an artist. There's so many ways I could spend my time making a living. I could be a waitress, but why am I trying to push so hard into a field that clearly doesn't want me?
Some of the things I regret most are when I felt like I didn't put put myself forward to opportunities, or chose to stand to the side because of self doubt or because I was afraid to do something. And those are the things I tend to regret the most. Do you
Mm.
have examples of times when you feel you lost out, things that you really should have been doing, or you would have had a different reaction to something?
Yes, the answer is yes. Um, there were a lot of times that I didn't ask for what I wanted, even when it was on the table, even when someone was looking at me saying, like, what do you want?
Yeah.
There were times, plenty of times, that I did not vocalize it, or I shrank it a little bit because of being worried that maybe it was too much. I actually, a great example is not from myself, but I spent last week with a bunch of university students in the environmental sciences and just like mentoring them in their space at school. And I went around the room and I said, okay, like, what's your best case scenario? What's your like absolute dream? If failure was impossible, when I could wave a magic wand and give you like the project or the career that would be just the most magical for you, what would it be? And a lot of students said, like, oh, well, I think I would like continue my research now that I'm doing on, you know, this aspect of birds, and oh, I think I would, maybe study this small thing. And I pressed the students a little bit more and I said, no, no, no. Like, what is your like best case and like
Hmm.
truly, like again, not just what is realistic given the path you're on now, but if you could jump to being like the most profound, amazing dream. And they realized that that's not what their original answer was. They realized that they were like, "Oh, I would study polar bears." "Oh, I would, save all the blue whales. Oh, I would be the next Jane Goodall." And those
Hmm.
weren't the original answers that they gave when I asked that same question. First time versus like pressing them the second time. And these were all young women. I know that women often strive for what they're qualified for, what they already have experience doing,
Hmm.
and what they think they're qualified for based on their experience. And in society, men often put themselves out there for things they don't have experience with, but they assume, like, oh, I'm smart and I can learn how to do that if I'm given the opportunity. And this is something that like is very clear to me now. I'm 39, I'm entering my 40s soon, and I understand like, oh yeah, I can probably learn how to do anything. I don't necessarily have to have experience with it. But man, if I could go back 20 years, I wish I could really internalize my young self to understand like you don't have to have experience, you don't have to like know how to do the thing already. You just need to be passionate about it and honest and truthful and a hard worker. And if you're given an opportunity, you will learn how to do that.
Yeah, yeah, you do. And how has parenting influenced um, how you look at life and self doubt and what you want to pass on to your daughters?
I am a mother who travels almost constantly. So most months I am away more than I am home.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm lucky that I have a partner, my husband, who is a full-time dad, and that is a freaking huge job, but he does it so that I can have the career that I have. Um, but it means that when I am home with my children, with my daughters, that I try not to be busy. I try to be extremely available. Um, and I have a lot of self-doubt about that.
I did have one question, um, and that's just about the time you took the kids out to track jaguars. Um, what was that like?
Oh gosh, it was not good. I have this story of making a poor choice, actually. So this isn't necessarily a self-doubt story, but it is a story of, yeah, making a poor decision and then having to like deal with the consequences of it. But I had an opportunity to participate in a jaguar research project in Panama. And this was a part of the world I'd never been to. And jaguars are an amazing big cat that I'd always wanted to work with.
Hmm.
And the problem was that I didn't have childcare. So my husband at the time was not able to, he was working full time and was not able to take care of our daughter while I was gone in Panama in the rainforest. And, my mom, who would sometimes help us, she wasn't available at this time either. And, you know, I had a decision to either go for it and bring my daughter, who at the time was 2, or to not go and let this opportunity, pass me by.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't take this guy up on this opportunity, I may never be able to study jaguars again. I may never be able to get to Panama to do this research again. I may never get another opportunity,
Hmm.
to do something brave like this again, which isn't true. But at the time, I really felt like I have to do this. It would be a huge mistake not to. And so the only thing I could do was bring my 2-year-old to the rainforest on this jaguar expedition in Panama. And I did. I packed her up. We flew down to Central America and drove out into the wilderness and stayed for about 2 weeks in a little field station in the rainforest. Um, and there was a local Panamanian woman who lived in that village who took care of my daughter while I was out in the field all day. And the terrible part of this story is that there was not triumph. I can't say like, and it was worth it. It was actually one of the biggest learning moments, experiences of my life because we never found a jaguar. The project couldn't
Oh
even get started
no.
because after all that time, I mean, and jaguars are very hard to find. They're extremely elusive animals. They were probably around us constantly, but we didn't see them.
Yeah.
But we never found a jaguar, and it it was not a great experience for my daughter. It wasn't bad. She wasn't harmed, it wasn't harmful for her, but she was too little to remember it. Um, she was away from home, like we were exposed to, tropical diseases and all kinds of things. I think it was a little bit of an extreme trip for her at that age. And the trip really did nothing for me. It did not advance my, like, experience. It didn't add to my career. I wasn't able to build on that project. I returned from that trip and I realized I am never going to feel ever again like something is my only opportunity to do something. Like an expedition, a trip, a research project is the only opportunity that I'll ever have in my life to do this. I'm never going to allow myself to feel that way again because it's probably just a lie that my brain is telling me.
Mhm. How did your daughters feel about you? I heard you kissed a bear. Um, what do they think of mommy kissing a bear at work? Could you just tell me about that story?
Okay, well, full disclosure, I do work with bears a lot for my research, but they are, giant, ferocious creatures that can easily kill us, and
Yeah.
so a big part of my work is tranquilizing them. So
Mhm.
before I do any of my actual work on wild bears, they get tranquilized with a dart gun, and then they're asleep when I'm handling them. And no, I've pretended to kiss bears. I wouldn't actually plant my lips on one, but I've taken some photos just for fun, with a sleeping mama bear as I'm giving her an exam and attaching a GPS collar on her to track her movements. Um, and that's something, believe it or not, I will say that I wish I could say that my kids were just like thrilled by that they thought it was the wildest, craziest thing. But honestly, because I've been the same kind of mom ever since both of them
Yeah.
were born,
Yeah.
well, almost 10 years now. It's so normalized for them.
Yeah. Wasn't there a story about you giving CPR to a bear?
I wrote about it in my book. Goodness. So it was actually a really unfortunate situation. So, the many dozens and dozens of times that I have gone out with different teams of wildlife biologists to find a bear, tranquilize it, and then you give it a checkup and attach a collar to it so we can track its movements.
Mm-hmm.
I'd done that many, many times, and it had always gone just according to, the strategy, just by the book. And there was one experience where I was tagging along on a project that wasn't mine, and the bear, when we tranquilized her, what we didn't realize is that as she fell asleep in her den, she fell asleep with her snout kind of in the debris that was kind of padding the den and in a way that she couldn't breathe through her nose when she fell asleep and her mouth was closed. And when we went in to 5 minutes later to pull her out, we realized, oh my gosh, she isn't breathing. Um, and I was on the job learning. And instead of just giving up and having this horrible error happen, the biologist I was with immediately turned this bear onto her back. I mean, she was probably a 500-pound black bear and started pumping her chest and giving mouth to mouth resuscitation. We were doing it just like you do with people. And we're out in the middle of the wilderness, if you can imagine, snow everywhere, like no one around for miles and
Mhm.
miles. And there's a team of about 5 of us taking turns pumping. One person is pumping the chest, the other person is breathing, into her mouth, a wild bear's open mouth with fangs and everything. And it took a long time, but eventually we got a pulse back. And eventually she started breathing again. And she was still sedated, of course, because the sedative takes about an hour to wear off. So she
Mm.
was still asleep, but alive again. And as she revived, like I saw my career flash in front of my eyes when I was like, oh my gosh, I think we just killed a bear. And that's the opposite of what we're out here for, actually. Um, but having that panic dissipate and turn into this wonder and like recognize that we're experiencing a miracle, and there's like a rebirth and a renewal and a restart, an incredibly special moment.
I have a question from my daughter Coco because I told her about this story and she wanted to know two things. She wanted to know what its breath smelled like, and she wanted to know if you were scared.
Yes, I was scared. And its breath, bears don't smell that bad. Wild black bears do not smell that bad. They're actually very clean animals.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't recall the breath being bad.
Horrifying. Okay.
Bears and dogs share a common ancestor. So it was almost like a very, very clean dog's mouth, like the cleanest dog's breath you could ever ask for. So,
Okay.
so not amazing breath, but not really bad.
Thank you. I will let her know. Ray, with the work that you do, what have you learned about motherhood from the animals that you work with and the animals that you learn from?
Almost everything. Almost everything. I didn't realize it until just a couple of years ago, but in my 20 years of studying wild animals, I've actually dedicated my work to studying female wild animals, the
Mhm.
female of the species, the ones that give birth, the ones that become mothers. I was doing that for years without realizing that was my
Yeah.
actual focus. Whatever it is, I've always looked at what habitats are the females choosing and why, and how are they keeping themselves safe and why, and do they have different needs than their male counterparts?
Mhm.
20 years of this work has helped me with my motherhood. It's helped me understand like how primal it can be, how we as humans are truly, human animals. We are part of the same kingdom. We have the same instincts as a lot of these wild animal mothers. And I feel very, very connected to the natural world because of that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ray. That
Yeah,
was
no
great.
problem.
And best wishes with the lions and jaguars and bears.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully tigers one day so I
Yeah.
can complete that the right way.
And thank you for being part of the Dear Daughter podcast and for contributing
for having
this
me.
important lesson to Coco, even though it was a letter for your lovely daughters. Thank you.
It's for daughters everywhere. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Dear Daughter for the BBC World Service YouTube channel with me, Namulanta Kombo. Subscribe to our channel now so you don't miss a single episode.